Tonight, I'm taking you to a small garage in Los Altos, California, on a spring evening in 1976, so quiet it would change the world's destiny. In the garage of Paul and Clara Jobs' home, two young men were pursuing something that would change the future. That evening, those primitive circuit boards that Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak held in their hands were the first steps of a revolution that would forever change humanity's relationship with technology. From the outside, it looked ordinary, but inside was a garage where history would be written. Among dusty shelves, the smell of oil soaked into the walls, and tangled cables, ideas that would change humanity's fate were sprouting. But in that small space, a vision that would change the world was taking shape. These quiet working hours of the two Steves were laying the foundation for billions of people's future technology experience. Tonight, I will tell you Steve Jobs' story. This is not just an entrepreneur's story. This is the story of much more than an entrepreneur. The story of an obsession, a dream, a revolution. The story of an extraordinary journey that began in a small garage and extended to the world's most valuable company. Born in 1955, Steve Jobs was adopted by Paul and Clara Jobs. His childhood, spent in the towns around San Francisco Bay that were still experiencing the calm before the storm, was the story of a curious child's first encounter with technology. His father, Paul, was a machinist and repairman. Those long hours spent in the garage ignited the first sparks of perfectionism in a small child's hands. In those years, Silicon Valley was still an orchard. Apple trees, apricot orchards, and quiet streets. No one could know that this peaceful geography would become the heart of the technology revolution. Young Steve, while dismantling clock parts in his father's garage, was unconsciously laying the plans for a future technology empire. When Steve met Wozniak in 1976, there was a special chemistry between them. Wozniak was the owner of technical genius. Steve was the visionary. In those early days, during the hours they spent in the garage, the foundations of the Apple I computer were laid. Every soldering operation, every connection, was a herald of the personal computer age. In that dim light of the garage, two young men were building the future. Steve's perfectionism showed itself from those days onward. Wozniak's engineering marvel circuits were blending with Steve's aesthetic vision. This harmony was the beginning of the pursuit of perfection that would be ingrained into Apple's DNA. In 1976, Apple I was, from the outside, just a hobby computer that enthusiasts would play with. But in Steve's mind, a massive dream was sprouting that would fundamentally change humanity's relationship with technology. He envisioned a future where people would use computers in their homes. During the development of Apple II, Steve's obsession clearly emerged. Technical perfection alone wasn't enough. The product also had to be beautiful. From the white tone of the plastic case to the elegant roundness of the corners, even to the shape of screw heads that wouldn't be visible. Every detail passed through Steve's control. Employees would sometimes discuss the position of a single button in meetings that lasted until morning. Released in 1977, Apple II changed the personal computer industry. With its color screen, audio output, and user-friendly design, Apple II took computers out of an elite minority and brought them into ordinary people's lives. Steve's vision was beginning to come true. Working at Apple in those days was both exciting and challenging. Steve demanded only the best from his employees. In a company built with an A-team philosophy, mediocrity was not tolerated. Meetings that lasted until midnight were part of the pursuit of perfection. When Apple went public in 1980, it became one of history's largest IPOs. 25-year-old Steve Jobs had suddenly become the world's youngest billionaire. But success also strengthened the dark sides of Steve's character. His perfectionism sometimes turned into unbearable pressure. In the early 1980s, Steve was running two revolutionary projects simultaneously, Lisa and Macintosh. The Lisa project was Steve's most personal wound. He had rejected the daughter he named it after, but had given her name to a computer. He had an obsession with bringing the graphical user interface he saw at Xerox PARC to personal computers. But the project that truly burned his heart, that became the meaning of his life, was Macintosh. He wanted to create a computer that would be insanely great. Team members believed they could achieve extraordinary things with Steve's visionary leadership. But Steve's intense pressure sometimes became unbearable. Project meetings could last for hours, and even a single pixel had to pass through Steve's approval. Macintosh's debut in 1984 was not just a product launch, but a turning point in technology history. Steve's stage performance changed the standards of product launches. The computer saying, "Hello, I'm Macintosh," enchanted the audience. At that moment, Steve's showman talent was introduced to the world. But when the curtain fell, the realities were harsh. Macintosh wasn't selling as expected. Its expensive price and limited software support hindered sales. Steve took a defensive position against criticism. The power struggle within the company was intensifying. During that period, Apple employees experienced Steve's two faces, the inspiring visionary and the ruthless critic. He could say, "This is magnificent," in one moment and characterize the same project as "this is garbage" the next day. This unpredictability both motivated and wore down team members. In 1985, Steve Jobs was forced to leave the company he founded. The power struggle with John Sculley resulted in Steve's defeat. At only 30 years old, the shining hero of the technology world was suddenly exiled from his own kingdom. This blow would deeply affect Steve's character. After leaving Apple, Steve founded Next Computer. This new company showcased the extreme points of Steve's perfectionism. Next workstations were technically magnificent, but commercially unsuccessful. Steve sometimes put his aesthetic obsession before business strategy. During the same period, Steve bought Pixar Animation Studios. This small company he acquired from George Lucas allowed Steve to showcase his creative vision in a different field. The years at Pixar filed down Steve's sharp edges. He learned team spirit, patience, and the power of storytelling. Toy Story's success in 1995 brought Steve back to the stage. Pixar's IPO created an animation studio powerful enough to compete with Disney. Steve proved he was a master of storytelling as well as technology. Those exile years became a maturation period for Steve. Instead of the young and arrogant CEO at Apple, an experienced and strategically thinking leader emerged. The failures at Next and successes at Pixar laid the foundation for Steve's future Apple period. In 1997, Apple brought Steve Jobs back by purchasing Next. Apple was floundering on the brink of bankruptcy. There was chaos on the shelves, consisting of dozens of products choking each other. The brand identity had almost been erased. The product range was complex. Brand identity was unclear. When Steve returned, he made radical decisions. He canceled dozens of products and focused on just a few main categories. The first fruit of Steve's return came in 1998, the iMac. With its translucent, colorful case, the iMac changed the computer industry's gray box mentality. The Think Different campaign summarized Apple's new philosophy. Being different was not a choice, but a necessity. The iMac's success proved the accuracy of Steve's vision. People didn't just want functional devices. They wanted beautiful, inspiring products. Apple's design-centered approach shattered all the unwritten rules of the technology industry. Employees returning to Apple during that period encountered a new Steve Jobs. He was still a perfectionist, but more focused and strategic. The exile years had given him patience and long-term thinking ability. Apple's culture was reshaped around the focus of creating insanely great products. The design partnership he formed with Jonathan Ive would determine Apple's future. The two men had a shared vision for creating products that combined technology and art. This collaboration would form the foundation of the next decade's Apple products. The introduction of the iPod in 2001 was the symbol of Apple's transformation from a computer manufacturer to a brand that shapes people's lifestyles. The slogan, 1,000 songs in your pocket, was the summary of a revolution that would fundamentally change the music industry. During the development of the iPod, Steve's obsession with details reached its peak. The material of the earphone cable, the feel of the click wheel, even the box opening experience. Everything passed through Steve's control. The concept of unboxing experience entered the technology world with Apple. The opening of iTunes Music Store in 2003 accelerated the music industry's transition to the digital age. Steve conducted difficult negotiations with music companies, stood alone against giant record companies, and fought an uncompromising war for every song to cost 99 cents. This determination enabled digital music to gain mass acceptance. In those years, Apple employees closely experienced the power of Steve's vision. The project to transform the music industry brought not only technological, but also cultural revolution. Steve showed how technology could enrich human life. The iPod's success completely changed Apple's brand perception. It became a cool brand, not only in the eyes of computer enthusiasts, but also ordinary consumers. This transformation laid the groundwork for the future iPhone revolution. The introduction of the iPhone in 2007 was the peak of Steve Jobs' career, truly a moment of triumph. At that famous Macworld presentation, and on that historic stage, these words he spoke were etched into technology history. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone. It marked one of the most important moments in technology history. The development of the iPhone became Apple's most difficult project to date. Steve would not compromise on creating a perfect user experience. Dozens of different designs were tried in the prototype phase. Physical keyboard, stylus, different screen sizes. Steve rejected them all. Touchscreen, single button, simple design. The iPhone was the pinnacle of Steve's minimalist vision. During the presentation, Steve's demonstrations forever changed the standard of technology presentations. Scrolling web pages with fingers, enlarging photos, playing music. Every touch was met with sounds of admiration echoing in the hall. The audience was enchanted. At that moment, the future of mobile technology was determined. The iPhone's market entry became a turning point, not only for Apple, but for the entire technology industry. Nokia, BlackBerry, Palm. All competitors suddenly became representatives of old technology. Steve's vision had not only buried competitors, but an entire industry in history. In those days, Apple employees were aware they were witnessing history. Every team member knew they were working on a product that would change the lives of billions of people worldwide. This sense of responsibility became an inseparable part of Apple's culture. The introduction of the iPad in 2010 introduced Steve's last great vision to the world. The tablet computer idea wasn't new, but Steve took this old idea, reinvented it, and brought it into millions of lives. The phrase magical and revolutionary device summarized the iPad's positioning. During the iPad's development, Steve's health problems were gradually worsening. But this situation didn't reduce his perfectionism. Screen thickness, battery life, application experience. Every detail passed through Steve's personal supervision. The iPad, which single-handedly created the tablet market, became the last and brightest masterpiece of Steve's strategic genius. Filling the gap between laptop and smartphone, the iPad created a new product category: e-reading, digital magazines, games. Content consumption became more personal than ever. The iPad's success showed how sharp Steve's future foresight was. The post-PC era he mentioned began to materialize with the dominance of tablets and mobile devices. Computer use was moving from desktop to palm. In those days, Apple employees were experiencing Steve's vision closely for the last time. In every project meeting, decisions that would shape the next decade's technology trends were being made. Steve's legacy was being ingrained into Apple, not just as products, but as a way of thinking. When Steve Jobs left us in 2011, not only Apple, but the entire technology world felt a deep void. Steve, who bid farewell to life at 56, left behind a deep legacy. Apple had become a company strong enough to continue his vision. In Steve's final years, Apple employees had internalized his leadership philosophy. Perfectionism, user focus, design superiority. These values had been ingrained into Apple's DNA. Tim Cook and his team carried the company into the future while preserving Steve's legacy. The culture Steve brought to Apple outlived his physical presence. The Think Different philosophy had become not just a slogan, but a way of life for Apple employees. Every new product was evaluated with the question, would Steve approve of this? Today, Apple is the world's most valuable company. iPhone, iPad, Mac. The product family born from Steve's vision is part of billions of people's daily lives. Every touch, every swipe carries traces of Steve's perfectionism. The most important thing Steve brought to the technology world was human-centered design understanding. Technology should serve people. People should not adapt to technology. This philosophy raised the standards not only of Apple, but of the entire industry. Steve Jobs' story whispers this to us. True innovation transforms not only machines, but also culture, lifestyles, and human habits. He didn't reinvent computers, phones, and tablets. He redefined people's relationship with these devices. Steve's perfectionism could sometimes go to extremes. But this obsession improved the quality of technology that billions of people around the world use in their daily lives. Every touchscreen, every intuitive interface carries traces of Steve's vision. Today's success of Apple is the fruit of the revolution whose seeds were planted in that small garage in 1976. The journey from a small computer kit to the world's most valuable company shows the power of vision and determination. Perhaps Steve's greatest legacy is spreading the courage to think different to the entire world. Today, every entrepreneur, designer, and engineer walks in the light of the insanely great standard Steve created. Tonight, as you sleep, think of that quiet California garage. At Paul Jobs' workbench, his two young men's dreams became reality. Steve's vision continues to live in every technological device you hold in your hands today. Every time you touch an iPhone, every time you open an iPad, Steve's Think Different spirit dances at your fingertips.